Welcome back to another episode of VR History. I'm here today in the Mushroom Kingdom, joined for an exclusive interview by the man who did not paint these paintings for Princess Peach. Now we're going to take inside and do a little tour of the castle. It's not really inhabited anymore, and the whole place is empty and barren and desolate. But that gives us a perfect opportunity to take an uninterrupted tour, and I'm going to take some time for our guest to introduce himself. So go ahead.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Maestro Brushworth, and I have worked with Peach I haven't worked with Peach for several years, mostly on architectural advice, but she commissioned me a while back to not paint these paintings. And as your viewers might know, Rudiger, or might not know, this is one of several castles that Peach, I'm on a first name basis, and as you can see, Princess Toadstool owns. We in the business refer to this castle as Castle B, because she wanted a castle to host guests for parties and to show off the arts. She is a great lover of the arts, as you may know, and so yes, I was commissioned to not paint the pieces of work you see in this castle.
That's a really fascinating introduction. Thank you for that, and we're very happy to have you on the show. I think we might as well just start. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this castle owned by Princess Toadstool, it is a three-story castle. Each level has multiple rooms and chambers, and nearly everyone is home to somewhat unique. There are a couple of copies here, but a bunch of paintings here that represent different themes and worlds that a work of art can transport you to. So I thought we would just start with what most visitors start with this one right here, which, I'll just turn it to you. What do you got for us?
So this piece was actually the first that I worked on, and I call this one the Field of Echoing Ordnance. And originally, I had planned to have a warplane in the sky in the background, because this piece is focused on the Great Bob-omb Battlefield of 1999, and as you can see, the marching bob-ombs evoke that sense of moving forward to war, and I wanted to contrast that with the blue sky behind, the dichotomy between peace and war, and how war goes against our natures.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And the contrast of the sky, the light, cool color tones of the sky contrasted with the black void of the bob-ombs is like, it kind of reminds me of another work of art that I greatly appreciate. It's actually a song titled, what's the name of the title? It's by Pink Floyd, featured on their album The Wall. Goodbye Blue Sky, and that's kind of what we're seeing here, as these bob-ombs are marching to bring to pass that chaos and carnage that only war and destruction can bring. And so I think that's a very powerful artistic approach to convey that message.
Yes, I appreciate you saying so.
Fascinating. So what do you think, I guess, what allure does this particular painting or theme have for someone like Princess Toadstool? Why would she add this to her personal collection, do you think?
Well, it's a historical piece, and I think that's the primary reason that she wanted this one. She wanted something to commemorate the war and all the bob-ombs that died in it. And of course, before Bowser, did what he did,
right.
These paintings weren't portals. They were just works of art. And so having this commemorating the genocide of the Black Bob-omb race, I think, was important. She wanted, even though it was a necessary evil, to remember that it had happened.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it kind of gives a different meaning or interpretation coming from someone of royalty, someone of power and authority who is on sort of in the background of controlling a war and the flow of battle. Because someone like Princess Toadstool or any sort of like general or commander, they're not the ones necessarily on the field. They're not the ones who are, well, sometimes they are, but it's typically not the case where they're in the thick of it. And whereas you have a painting like Pablo Picasso's Guernica, and how that depicts the horrors of some of the war and genocide that went on in Spain in the early 20th century, I believe it was, maybe before. It kind of shows you the horrors of war, but from the perspective of those who are in the midst of it. Whereas this is, like you were saying, sort of a memorial, a tribute to the valiant soldiers and souls who have to put their lives on the line for the greater good. So it is a rather powerful work.
I'm glad you think so.
All right, let's go into this room here and see what we can see. This is Princess Toadstool's famous mirror room. Kind of a anyway, we've got this painting here, which we've actually... Let's save that for later, because the room the original is found is a lot more immersive, and we can talk about it then. I think this is sort of a backup storage room. There's a lot of duplicates in here. This one's interesting. Not a whole lot is known about this simple Starry Night here. Immediately, I'm kind of drawn to the works of Vincent van Gogh and sort of the works of the Impressionist masters. What can you tell us about this one?
Yes, so this one I named Blue Cloud Doublet, and this one is more of a, how should I say, more of an emotional piece for me. I was going through dark times when I painted this one, when I didn't paint this one, and Peach wanted something specifically positioned before that stairwell where, you know, most people won't stop to look at it because they're moving upstairs to see the grander pieces. She wanted something to preface that, and I thought this one would work nicely there, something that would draw on the emotions within each of us, but not so powerful that it caused you to stop your tour for too long a period of time, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah, kind of like what artworks serve in like a motel room. You walk in your room and they're simply there. They don't really add a whole lot of value, but you appreciate that the walls aren't just left blank, because this would be a rather large blank space if this painting wasn't here. So yeah, I understand that.
Yes, and I would just add as well, I think that the reason that Bowser didn't imbue a power star into this particular painting is that perhaps it hit too close to home for him, where this blue that we feel in each of us, perhaps Bowser feels more strongly even than the rest of us, and so we're already in it.
Wow, that is powerful. That is an insight I never would have come up with on my own. So, I guess with this particular painting, what do you think would be different if you had painted it?
It might be purple.
Yeah, like a nice serene sunset. I do like the color purple.
Yeah.
Cool. That's really interesting. We have... I really like what's going on here. So we have a big painting of this sea bug here, and it is adorned by a pair of what looks like the sun and the sky, and these sun paintings are exact mirrors. They're replicas, but they are mirrors of each other. So with this sort of triptych going on, What can you tell us? Well, let's start with this painting in the middle. What's going on? What do we see here?
So this is a portrait of Skeeter John, and you find him. He is a native to the wet, dry world.
Ah, yes.
And Peach is also in addition to being a historical student, she is a zoological student, and she adores all the many creatures of her kingdom, and wanted one particularly representative of the insects. And so Skeeter John was one that I chose because I find them just so fascinating.
I see. And so with Skeeter John here being your primary choice, how do you think that influenced the painter who did actually create this painting?
Right. I can't speak for him or her, but for me, if I had painted this, which I haven't, I think it probably would evoke senses of being larger than life. You know, the little guy in the world,
right?
Taking on a greater world, wanting to be greater than you are.
Mm-hmm. That's very inspirational. I think a lot of us can take a look at this painting and think of ourselves as young Skeeter John here, who just treads through life by barely skimming across the surface of the water, doing all we can not to drown in the chaos of it all. But we look at Skeeter John here, we can tell by the ways his eyes are painted that he does look a bit distraught. He's got some sadness in him, and yet he carries on. We look at the firmness in his legs and how those are painted. Let me just get a better view here if I can. Those legs are just really sharp angles to give us sort of an idea of precision, exactness, any sort of like doing things the right way because you absolutely have to. With that being said, what might we learn, or why do you think Princess Toadstool had these sunscapes adorning Skeeter John here? What can you tell us about those?
So this is a common misconception that these paintings depict the sun. As you can see, the white shapes on either side are actually wings. These are what we call solar bats, and they are the natural predator to the Skeeter John.
Oh, fascinating.
And so having one positioned on each side, it I think evokes what the Skeeter John feels on a daily basis, being trapped, being caged in between natural predators and physically unable to sink, to hide beneath the water because he's constantly floating atop it, and that battle from all sides.
That really adds a lot to the meaning of this painting. As I mentioned before, how Skeeter John, all of us can kind of relate to him in his trials going through mortality. Your clarification of what these paintings actually are, that adds a whole new layer of meaning to the human experience. Well, not even human in this case, but the mortal experience. We have these, tell me what they were called again? Sunbacks?
Yes, solar bats.
Solar backs, actually. We have these solar backs, which if we had a graph of the food chain, which I don't have one on me, we would see these solar backs a rung or two above Skeeter John here. And so that food chain example applies to every living thing, that there's always going to be something out there that wants to devour you, that wants you dead. And so we all gotta be cautious, much like our friend Skeeter John here, because we as mortals, we are susceptible to all of the flaws and shortcomings that come with this thing that we call life. So really, really fascinating. I think there is one more Oh, there's a couple more, but let's go into this room here. And let's take a look at this threesome. And there's a really interesting motif in art at play here regarding size, but we'll get to that. So we'll go to the main one here. We have here two mushroom men, which I believe in these parts are referred to as Goombas. One of them looks up at the larger one behind him, and the larger one looking down at him. Both of them have similar physical features, and they kind of just have this look of almost excitement mixed with fury. What more can you tell us about this one?
Excellent. Yes, so this one is one of my personal favorite pieces, and it's entitled The Bureau of Size Mistakes, which if I had painted it myself, I wouldn't change the name. I think it's fantastic.
Didn't you name it though?
I didn't. No, I have nothing to do with these paintings.
So you did not name this one.
Right, that's correct. But it is called The Bureau of Size Mistakes.
I see.
And when this piece was made, it was, again, Peach is a zoological student, and so she wanted to include other species in her representations of art. And this one, these two Goombai, as the plural is, were, as the name of the painting implies, the members that constituted the Bureau of Size Mistakes. And they were working to decide how big Tiny Huge Island should be when they got into a heated argument, and that's kind of the emotion that I think we see on their faces here.
Okay, so this is a sort of in-the-moment capturing of a heated debate, one with great ramifications. Interesting. Great
or small ramifications, yes.
I see, okay. And so we come over to this left side. This room is shaped much kind of like a straight edge with a little nub right here. But we come to this smaller painting. It's the exact same thing, but it's roughly, what would you say, half the size, maybe a third of the size. What do you think the artist, and that's not you, of course, but what do you think the artist might be trying to say by having three differently sized paintings of the same subject?
Well, I think it makes the viewer wonder which size is the correct size, right? If you have three varying sizes, and does it even matter?
Interesting. Yeah, that is a question that I think everyone ought to think about. And over here, I just find this one breathtaking because of its absurd size. I mean, you see actual size here. It's got to be at least 8 feet off the ground. Let me back up a bit so I can get a better angle. It's just ginormous. And something that I find interesting about artists and how they choose to interact with the medium of painting, when it comes to size, you have to consider the clarity of the image. Because this is the same image, but in the largest form, we lose some of that integrity of the quality of the painting. As you can see, the lines are a lot fuzzier, the features aren't as well made out. It almost looks blocky in a way, which is an interesting creative decision. I don't think that was necessary to do when painting this, but it might be alluding to the whole idea of blowing something out of proportion the more you escalate the issue. Kind of like, as you were saying, how the argument here is reflected in these paintings, in the art.
I think you're absolutely right.
Interesting. I think I share your same sentiment. I am rather fond of this trio of paintings. Alright, so we got one more up on this level, and then we will go back downstairs and take a look at some of those. I really like this one. I personally am a big fan of the landscape genre, And this one is just a lot of fun because it's simple in composition, simple in color, and the line work kind of leads the eyes to move all around the painting. So a quick formal analysis, what we see is we see a tall rocky mountain on the left with some trails, I guess, some areas to walk on. And then we have these ginormous mushroom trees that are extending into the sky, their origin not known to us. What can you tell us about this one?
Excellent, yes. So this one is entitled The Breathless Mountain. And Tall Mountain is its official legal name, and it is, as your viewers may or may not know, essentially the Alcatraz of the Mushroom Kingdom, where the vilest criminals are sent here. And of course, as there are no criminals in the Mushroom Kingdom, the only inhabitant is the monkey, because that's just how fantastic of a ruler Peach is. And when I wasn't painting this one, really scale was my challenge with this one. I wanted to invoke the hugeness, the grandeur of this mountain,
right,
and make something that spoke to the viewer and said, "Climb me." And this is what I managed to come up with.
That's interesting, and I like that you gave us your intent with the painting that you would have made, because coming from this one, a painting that you clearly did not make, I don't get that same sense of feeling here. Like, I look at that mountain, and initially I think, that's not very climbable. For one, where does it start? Are you going to have to skydive down onto this thing and just start from where you land? It doesn't work to me as an advertisement for rock climbing, so I think that's an interesting way to look at it.
Absolutely. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Okay, let's make our way back down the stairs. The very, very top floor is off limits to us right now, so we will forego that one for the time being. We have in this one, there were copies of this, but I really like this because, again, we get the trio panel going on of the snowman and the snow boy, stuck in their wintry wonderland or their wintry wasteland. It's all a matter of perspective, with their lone tree. And from an artist's perspective, well, I'm not an artist, but as someone who analyzes art, we see a common motif in this little snow boy here. A lot of art invites, or a lot of artists, with their intention, they want the art, or they want the spectator to be a participant in this work of art. And a common way of doing that is by having a character within the artwork looking out at you, making eye contact with the viewer. And that is sort of a way of establishing a connection between subject and spectator. And I feel like this little snowboy here is doing the same thing. So those are my 2 cents. Take it away. What do you have for us on these?
Excellent, yes. So this piece is entitled A Sentient Horror. And I like that you mentioned that you caught on to the younger of the snowmen, looking at the viewer. That, I think, was taken from the famous painting The Scream, is where that inspiration. And in this piece, it's entitled A Sentient Horror because these are, of course, snowmen, and they are sentient, and it is snowing. And so the equivalent would be if we found ourselves outside and it began raining flesh, which of course would be horrifying. And that's the terror that these snowmen have to come to terms with, as they've been cursed with sentience.
That is very disturbing, but very interesting. That makes me see these paintings in a whole new light. If you were the one to paint these, would you have followed a similar execution, or what would you have done differently?
I think if I had painted it, the snowmen would have been more whimsical, happier. I think this is completely messed up, but to each their own.
Fascinating. All right, moving on. I want to go visit that aquatic painting we saw earlier because what Princess Toadstool has done in here, I really love. I love the concept of the art installation, which isn't necessarily what we'll be looking at, but the way that the princess has used this space to complement and accentuate the work of art. It makes it a very immersive sort of experience. And so we'll talk about the fish here in a minute. Let's just do a quick analysis here. We see a sunken ship, and because it's sunken, that implies it is underwater. So we have the blue, again, water is blue, so that's the color used here. At the top we see a bright blue and then a pure white light, likely symbolizing the sun. And that's kind of just the first impression I get from this, but I'd love to hear your insights.
Excellent. Yes. So this piece is another one of my personal favorites. This one is entitled Captain Sardine-Beard's Folly. And it's another historical piece detailing the tragedy of Captain Sardine-Beard, who, of course, was a Koopa and captain of a ship. He, as I understand it, for a time actually worked alongside Captain Kidd, but then Captain Kidd became an adult and he stopped playing Mario, so they had a falling out there. And Captain Sardine-Beard continued on by himself. And when his ship sunk, millions of dollars, millions of gold coins, rather, were lost. And that tragedy is depicted here.
Huh. That is a really dark tale. Kind of reminds me of the classic song by Gordon Lightfoot, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I always feel that coming through my mind as I just gaze into this painting of the tragedy that is being lost at sea, of having something so valuable and so important as a grand boat, a grand vessel, to just succumb to the whims, the cruelty of nature. And kind of going back to what we were talking about with Skeeter John, it's a lesson to us, a memento mori, another term used in the art world. Just a reminder that we will die, and we don't know when or how, but the way nature works, we simply can never tell. And that's kind of what I think of when I gaze longingly at this.
And ships are just cool.
I do like me a good ship. So again, going back to the concept of the art installation, we take a look at these fish here, and they, again, reinforce that whole theme of being underwater. This room obviously is not, because there's still, like, normal gravity and things like that. I can breathe and everything. But we take a look at these fish and we think, okay, what we know about fish is they cannot breathe air, and so of course they're going to be underwater here. And what we know about this painting is it is also underwater, and so the two things just coalesce in such a beautiful harmony, and I just really, I really enjoy that when viewing the work of art. Well, I think there is one, oh no, there's a couple more. We gotta take a look at this beautiful painting of a fascinating piece of architecture. So I'll just, tell us what you can tell us here.
Right, so this piece, nicknamed, of course, Womp's Fortress, is actually entitled Thunderclap Keep. And it, I think, is interesting that it's come to be known as Womp's Fortress, even though, as you can see in the painting, this is the fortress before Womp rose to power, as the top of the fortress still exists and isn't just a stage where Womp is hanging out.
That's very true.
And it's a shame what happened, the fallout with the Womps and the princess, because, you know, Mr. Womp isn't just an enemy. He's also an architect. He is part of the architecture, but he's, well, I shouldn't speak shouldn't speak ill of the princess, as I'm not in her employ. But I think you can piece together the irony between having a fortress that is built of womps come to be known by the ire of those same womps.
That's pretty cool. I got nothing left to say on that one. Alright, we're going to mosey on down into the basement, where I believe there is one more to look at, and then we're going to look at a technical marvel that this castle holds. But I won't spoil the surprise on that one yet. So this one, some of our viewers may find disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. Now, what we got here, I've spent a lot of time analyzing and trying to come up with what I'm seeing here. Part of me just wanted to take the easy way out and say, oh, well, this is the devil, just evil incarnate. But I don't think I think it's a little more nuanced than that, because I don't think Princess Peach is, well, I don't know, you might know her better than I, but she doesn't strike me for one of the occult, or one who dabbles in the spiritualism too much. I certainly wouldn't call her out for being a witch. That is not what I'm trying to say. No, I would think that would be very fascinating. But what I think the artist did here, not you of course, is I think they simply painted the shape of a hand and gave it some texture to kind of make it look like fire, and then added a spooky little face. It kind of reminds me of the classic jack-o'-lantern, but in this case, not so much a pumpkin as it is kind of just like a, I don't know, it kind of looks like a glove. What can you tell us about this one?
Yes, so I've been informed that the princess is a very devout Christian, a Baptist, I believe. And so while this piece may have relations to Dante's Inferno, I believe that this painting actually references a fable that is popular in the Mushroom Kingdom. And if that's true, then this face would be a representation of Lava Larry, who is, of course, the fire spirit who wanted to open a volcanic bakery and sell his sourdough bread. So I suppose it's up to personal interpretation which is more likely.
It's really fascinating. It gives you a new perspective again, like a lot of background and context does for a work of art, to help you know that Lava Larry, he's not a personification of hell, of the underworld, of the great beyond. He's just a friendly guy who's trying to make it in this competitive world, and so I appreciate your illuminating our minds to the matter. Regarding its artistic value, we know that you didn't paint this one, so I am curious, who is Lava Larry to you, and how would you capture his image?
Right, so Lava Larry is actually my cousin, and we don't get along very well. So I think I probably wouldn't paint him, but if I did, it might be in an embarrassing situation, is what I would go for.
I see. And you know what? I totally get it, so we won't press you any further. We're going to go visit the last painting. And then as a little bonus, we're going to take a look at the stained glass display that Princess Peach had commissioned. So let's go back upstairs. Actually, nah, we won't bother with that. Okay. This one is really technically fascinating because it's an optical illusion. And so right away we see, honestly, a very amateur painting of Princess Peach. Her face is not to scale. It does not look evenly composed to me. I have no idea what's going on with her hair. I feel like her hair is not that exaggerated in real life. Then again, I've only met her a few hundred times. I'm sure you've are intimately familiar with her. So what can you tell us about this portrait? Is this a self-portrait even? I don't know. What can you tell us?
Right, so this one's interesting because this piece actually didn't exist before Bowser moved on the castle. And so this piece really unsettles me very greatly. As I understand it, whenever Mario enters this painting, Bowser gets a postcard from himself, mailed to himself from somewhere he's never been. So obviously, this painting has some kind of tragic, terrible effects on the space-time continuum that we may never understand, and that may ultimately result in the extinction of all life on Earth. And this is just because Bowser's intense greed in meddling with laws that are far beyond any of our understanding. So this painting may be the death of us all.
That certainly is a chilling vision of things that may come. That gave me goosebumps. And I'm sorry, my cameraman kind of spoiled the surprise, but as we go closer, we kind of get an example of that where the painting turns into Bowser himself, King Koopa, as it were. So we can see it has a very similar composition to the portrait of Peach. We have Bowser's features taking up pretty much most of the canvas, as Peach did. But his face and his colors are a lot less inviting. They're a lot more mean, almost like aggravating, I guess, in a way. That's sort of how I feel. But he looks at you like you just walked into his house without knocking on the door. And he's looking at you like, hey, this isn't your house. You should get out of here. But you're just like, I just need a glass of water, man. And he gets up off of his couch and he like pulls a baseball bat out from behind and he's like whacking it against his hand. And he's like, I told you to get out of here. And you're just like, dude, I'm sorry. The door was unlocked. You should have kept it locked and things like that. And I don't know. What can you tell us about this one?
Yes, I think you're probably closer to the mark than we may be ready to understand. It's sort of you picked the wrong house, fool, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible that Bowser painted this duology himself, which is why maybe they're not as nice as the other pieces. He may have felt left out, that his own art should be prominently featured in this castle that he had conquered, and again, his insane sort of egoism may have dire effects.
You know, when you pose that hypothesis, and I think you're completely right, because of all the paintings we've seen so far that you have nothing to do with, none of them have been portraits. They've all been either like still life, landscapes, abstract subjects. But this one, it is of a figure or a person in the sense of Peach, and so that is sort of evidence to me that this is a different artist, because as far as I know, there isn't only one artist that makes every painting in the world. I don't think that's how it works. So we have Bowser as, and I'll be honest, he is quite talented. I wouldn't give him an A+ for his portrayal of Peach because it seems a little off. But as far as his self-portrait, I am impressed. I think his color tone is a little too intense. I don't think his shell around his body there is that red. If I could be wrong, that may not be what it is. But I don't know. Would you say Bowser is a good painter?
You know, I suppose beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I wouldn't. I think he's a joke. I think he's a con artist and an idiot, and I think we should kill him, actually.
Well, those are tough words, tough but fair. So as we wrap things up, I again am very honored to have been joined by Maestro Brushworth, if I got your name right, to talk about and give us some insight to the paintings here in Princess Toadstool's castle. Now, as we close things up, let me learn you a little bit about the world of stained glass. Now, the world of stained glass is a world of light, because that is the tool that the medium uses to come alive. And so, when it comes to these stained glass panels, it's interesting that Princess Peach had the same one commissioned 3 times, with no deviation in design or size. Now she has one in each of these parapets in this little corner of the castle. So, as far as a stained glass window construction would go, these are really, really shoddy windows, I'm not gonna lie. It's possible that Princess Peach had some of her toads to build this window, and maybe they weren't properly trained. But we can see, if you look at the hair, that is the prime example. That hair, with how big it is, that is not going to survive anything. That is just so poorly planned out and designed for a piece of glass. It's got so many weak points, so many areas where building it with lead is going to be impossible. And so that just wasn't realistic, was not wise, and it will break any day now. I'm shocked that it hasn't yet. But as far as the color, I think it works really well. I think it is a pretty window with a lot of just beauty emanating from it. And I guess if you have anything you want to say about these, feel free.
Yes, Rudiger. I would just mention that this stained glass design is actually the same that we can see on the outside of the castle. So it strikes me as when you take a real nice selfie, and so you use that selfie on every social media platform as your profile picture, that's sort of what Peach is doing here. So I would assume, or at least think it reasonable, that Peach maybe did this piece herself. If she didn't,
this one,
create the glass herself, maybe she designed the image herself and liked it so much that she just put it all over the place.
That's rather vain, but I think you have a valid argument, and I don't have any counters to it. So, with that being said, I think this concludes our tour of the works of art found within Princess Toadstool's castle. I can never get used to saying her name. So I wanted to thank you again, Maestro, for joining us, and to thank all of you viewers out there in Videoland for joining on another episode of VR History. I am Rudiger Schneider. I hope you enjoyed, and I pray that you will like and subscribe, leave a comment as to your favorite painting found within this castle, any insights you can give us, so we can keep the conversation going. Thanks again for tuning in.